Dr. Sprowls. How you doing, sir?
Great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
All right, I've read this bill up and down, and I can't find this don't say gay stuff. What I see is two things. I see that discussions of sex and sexuality will be made age appropriate, and that school districts cannot counsel students without informing parents. Do I have it all right?
You absolutely have it right, Andrew. And the reason you have it right is because you actually took the time to read the bill, which, of course, the vast majority of the media who's been reporting on this bill hasn't bothered to read any of it. But you're exactly right. It does two things. It's all about empowering families. It says in first through third grade that there shouldn't be complicated conversations about sexual orientation in first through third grade. Let's remember, these are 6-year-olds in first grade. And then it says beyond that, it's age appropriate. In the state of Florida, they begin sort of health education, or known as sex ed, in about 4th grade that starts. So it says it has to be age appropriate. But the other part, probably, in my opinion, Andrew, the more important part for parents is, hey, you can't make these big life decisions for kids and not include the parents in the decision. There was an individual parent who came to the House to testify who said that a school district had created a gender non-conforming transition plan for her daughter, and had decided that they were going to keep all of that information from her mom, who happened to actually be a certified mental health counselor. So, we're saying, hey, government bureaucrats can't make massive life decisions for our children and not bother to include us.
Let me read a provision here to prove that I've actually read. I read it. I was looking for this. I'm like, okay, I'm seeing these crazy online ads from these left-wing, public interest groups. It says right here, a school district may not adopt procedures or student support forms that require school district personnel to withhold from a parent information about his or her student's mental, emotional, or physical health or well-being, or a change in related services or monitoring, or that encourage or have the effect of encouraging a student to withhold from a parent such information. You can't even take a kid on a field trip to the aquarium or a museum without a consent form. How would you allow school personnel, and we see this, and I know it's California, we're not talking about mental health counselors. We're talking about activist teachers who are creating these, gay clubs or transgender clubs or whatever it is, and encouraging students to join, and then refusing to tell the parents what's going on in those meetings. This just says, if you talk to my kid about their health and well-being, you have to tell me about it.
That's exactly what it says. And I love the example about, hey, you got to have your permission slip signed by your parents to go, see the sharks at the aquarium. Or if you're going to go to the school nurse because you have a headache, well, we're going to call, your parents and ask them whether or not it's okay to give you an aspirin. But if you go to the guidance counselor and come into, some sort of plan about your sexuality, that doesn't need to, come up with your parent. They can be completely shut out of the process. And look, this is about families. And we are living in a time now where there are certain people inside school districts who believe that their decision process is better than the parent. And the reality is that as parents, and I know you feel this way, Andrew, we have the right to fight for our children. If our kids are going through a mental health issue or they're having some kind of problem, I don't want to be shut out of it. I want to be able to help save my child, and no government bureaucrat has the right to take that away from me.
And even, I know they'll give the example, right? I can imagine this, and I know the state of Florida like the back of my hand. You could picture a scenario where from Ocala up west towards the Panhandle, which is, the kind of the Bible Belt of Florida, they say, well, what about a kid who's got, evangelical Christian parents who can't come out of the closet? Okay, I understand that. That still doesn't give you the power to step between a parent and child. No excuse does. These are still parents. They're not breaking the laws by being parents. You cannot come in here and separate a child from their parents. And I will add even more to this. I said it before you came on the program. If you had a recruiter or a military veteran come into a classroom, high school, let's say, talking to 17 and 18-year-olds, and they're talking about military service and questions about combat, casualties, death on the battlefield come up, there's a totally different way to present that to an 18-year-old than an 8-year-old. Even if that parent, and you've got a lot of military bases in Florida, a lot of them, especially in the Panhandle, you may have a child with an injured an injured father or an injured mother or even a father that lost his life in combat. You still would have to, you might present a soldier or an airman or a Marine or a sailor leadership, discipline, honor, talk about what it means to go through basic training, but you're probably not going to show the images of a battlefield to a 6-year-old.
That's exactly right. And that's a great example, right? We may teach about conflicts. You certainly learn, history, social studies, I guess, if you're in K through 3. But you're learning about, hey, there were these conflicts, right? The Revolutionary War, Abraham Lincoln, freed the slaves. You're probably not yet learning about things that are more horrific. You're not learning about them in detail. There comes a point when you get into higher grades, we want you to learn about the atrocities suffered during slavery. We want you to learn about the atrocities that happened during the Holocaust. But you're not going to do that in first grade, right? Because it's a very complicated topic. We need time for our kids to develop. That's what the bill says, right? Age-appropriate content. There is nothing about that is controversial. And, Andrew, I made this comment the other day, but, before I've got a 5 and 6-year-old little boys, and, before I let them watch a movie, right, I go and I try to refresh. Like,
you're reading my mind right now. So I was about to, I don't mean to jump in. I was just about to go somewhere. Go ahead, finish it. We're thinking, we're speaking the same language here. Go.
Right. Like there's this website, commonsense.com or whatever it is. But it's breaking down each movie. It's telling me what's the thing I need to be worried about in there for my kid. And then I make a decision as a parent. I go, okay, well, I'm probably going to wait a year before they see this movie. I'm going to let them watch, The Lion King tonight or something else. But that is my decision as a parent. But we are constantly, every day, 1,000 times a day, making age-appropriate decisions for our kids. Nothing controversial. Every parent does it. Our school district shouldn't take it away from us.
I was watching Glory the other day, and the scene where Matthew Broderick is being treated for a minor wound, and they're sawing off the guy's leg in the background, and he's screaming, "Don't cut my 6-year-old walked into the room, and I changed the channel." How would I explain that to him? Right? He came yesterday. He made George Washington's tricorn hat. I'm not going to explain to him that George Washington led a band of Continental soldiers to shoot the British on Christmas morning while they were asleep. Okay? He would not be able to understand that. Right. I explained to him that he's the first president. He's on the dollar bill. That all presidents have been judged by his skin. But I'm not going to explain to him right away. Now, my oldest is 12. She's learning that, and she has questions about how the Revolutionary War was fought. But there are some things my 12-year-old can absorb and that my 6-year-old can't. And when you talk about sex ed, human development, biology, right, there are certain things that you can present to a 6-year-old that or to an 18-year-old that you don't want to present to a 6-year-old.
Yeah, that's exactly right. What did we learn about Abraham Lincoln when we were little kids? He didn't tell a lie, honest Abe, right?
Yeah, right. Chop down the cherry tree, right? George Washington chopped down the cherry tree.
Don't tell a lie to your parents. It wasn't for a long time later that we learned about the Lincoln-Douglas debate. So I think that this is just not hard stuff. And I think what you've seen groups in the media sensationalize it, to raise money if they're political groups. Or to attack conservatives in the legislature who with some sort of plausible reason, what they really want to get at is they believe that government bureaucrats are in a better position to raise our children than parents are. We don't believe that, and we're happy to make that case to Floridians.
Let me expand this outward. This is something else we discussed before we had you on the program. Speaker of the Florida House, Mr. Sprowls, is joining us. And that is that when did we vote or agree or make a contract that we would just shut up, pay our taxes, and turn our children over to government-run education without question? And in this case, you are talking about government, the state of Florida, which under the 10th Amendment has the power to run its education system. I don't remember parents ever saying, you know what, you can just take my kid, do what you want with them for 6 to 8 hours a day, and I won't ask any questions. Again, anyone that reads this bill, I read through a provision. I could read more. I read one before you came on. This is not a long bill. It does not say don't say gay. It is not steeped in homophobia. It says that there are age-appropriate times to discuss with kids sex, sexuality, and human development, biology. And it says the school cannot provide important mental health counseling and deny parents access to information about it. I can't find anything controversial about this.
Yeah, because there is none. There is nothing controversial about it. It is just involving parents. And, your point about schools, that has been our point in Florida for the last 25 years as we've gone about the school choice movement. Last year, we passed the largest expansion of school choice in the history of the United States. And part of that, of course, is we want every kid, regardless of what neighborhood they grow up in, regardless of what their parents do for a living, to have the opportunity at a world-class education. But the other part of it is to create a natural education marketplace that public schools force private schools to be better or charter schools to be better and vice versa. And the reality is I think that competition has kept our schools in a better position. I think the vast majority of our parents, our teachers, Andrew, our principals, do the right thing. They care about kids. They care about age-appropriate content. For the few folks in a few districts who abuse that privilege, this is a bill to make sure that parents continue to be the ones who are ultimately the deciders in their children's lives.
Let me add one more thing here. You mentioned the legislation mentions physical health. That's one thing I know from going to the University of Florida and living in the Panhandle, that football and church are, but you could probably decide which one. Can you imagine if a football coach was telling players, don't tell your parents about your injury, right? Like you might have a hurt knee or a broken finger, but I need you to play on Saturday, so don't tell your parents. And we've seen this in North Dallas 40, in Varsity Blues, someone taking a needle in the knee to keep playing. Can you imagine if it came out that a coach was administering some kind of numbing agent to keep a kid on the field and not telling the parents? People would lose their minds. Even people that love football and support their town and their school, you don't shoot up a kid's knee to keep them on the field and don't tell the parents.
Absolutely, right? A football player comes down, their coach, to use your example, doesn't tell them, parents would be outraged. The kid tells somebody at the school, hey, I've got a drug problem, and that doesn't get back to the parent. The parent's got no ability to help their child, to get them the resources they need, to be prepared as somebody who's a parent for somebody who's got a substance abuse problem. How can we expect parents to be the best kind of parents they can be if they are sending their children to school 8 hours a day and there's something that is a life-changing thing, whether that's a mental health issue, whether it's a physical issue like we're talking about playing sports, if they are not armed with the ability to help their child and make the best decision along with them as to what's best for their future. That is what this bill is all about. That is what this session is all about. We just stood on the steps of the Capitol 2 days ago to put together a fatherlessness bill that passed off the House floor unanimously to tackle the fatherlessness crisis in the state of Florida. This whole session has been about empowering parents, empowering families, so that we can strengthen the family unit, and as a way of doing that, also strengthen the state of Florida.
Let me ask you this, and just one last thing here, Andrew. Why would anyone oppose this? I mean, what's the other side here? Like I said, you can give me the example of some kid who can't tell his parents or her parents, and whatever percentage that is, still is not to broaden it out and say, well, now no one. Now schools are keeping secrets from parents because there might be one kid who can't talk to their parents. That's a bunk argument. I want to know if the Democrats are opposed. Are there any Democrats in support of this? I would like to know, what their argument is that schools should just be able to operate in total secrecy.
Yeah, the bill will be on the floor, next week, so we'll be able to kind of know, who supports it, who doesn't when we vote on the bill. But the arguments, that have been waged against it are the ones that you've heard, which just, don't represent the actual words on the page. I believe that the sincerity of the feelings that people have on it, may be sincere, but they aren't relevant to the actual bill that's on the page, the words that are on the page. I understand when it comes to these topics, there's a great deal of fear. But look, I'm a parent. I'm in fear every single day. Right? Somebody told me one time when I became a dad, hey, the bad thing about being a dad, the one thing is that, you'll never get a restful sleep again for the rest of your life. And it was true, because we are constantly worrying about our kids, worrying about them. But what this bill says is the parents shouldn't have to worry that the person that they are turning their children over, the people they're turning their children over for 8 hours a day, are going to keep some information that is vital to that child's health or mental health or well-being, that they don't have the ability to act on, right? We expect that there's going to be a collaboration between the parents and the school. If something happens, I'm going to tell them, they're going to tell me, so that I can be the best parent, they can be the best educator. That's what's best for our kids, and that's what this bill says.
All right, I got to leave it there and take my break. We'll get you back on the program. I'd love to. I'm looking forward to doing this on Salem News Channel, because I think when you see the media acting hysterical, when you see Democrat activists acting hysterical, and then you actually bring out the piece of legislation and you actually read portions of it, the actual effectiveness of the effect of what it's going to deal with, it's like, oh, that's not so bad, right? I mean, that's not what you said it was. This is not some hauling off kids to a re-education camp for some conversion therapy. I mean, the insanity here just says age appropriateness in the schools. Parents have to be informed when the school is providing counseling. I see nothing wrong with it.
Absolutely, Andrew. Well, it's great being with you. I appreciate you taking the time to look at the bill.